Good evening, all. Hopefully you can hear me okay, and that everything's working, because it's moving this time and it didn't last week, so hopefully that's all good. Assuming that you can, good evening to Zavath, to Hardgrim, to Shinobi, Stakaragord, Ray, Blamsmith, Jockcop, and Tier Zero. Good to see you all. Yeah, so I hope you've all been enjoying. Great news, thanks, Avi, and good evening to you too, sir. Yeah, so hopefully you've all been enjoying IAE and you've been enjoying all of the the Save Stanton missions, if you've been getting on with those, and I kind of hope as well that people have been enjoying the IAE shows, because I feel like CIG have kind of pulled out all the stops when it comes to them, and we've had some really good information, and, there's been some fun watches, so that's cool. And, although it was a little bit off topic, and I'm sure people were wanting to hear about Paladin and other parts of the sale, it was kind of cool to see today's, which was the voice actor behind Jax McCleary. So, yeah, there's a few things to be getting on with, but as you can probably tell from the noise in the background, I'm going to get started. YouTube's going to demonetize me for this, but it's time for a cider, because it's been a long backside weekend, and yeah. So, cheers. Happy Sunday. But yeah, so kind of words. I need more, obviously. I'm kind of going to look a little bit at what we've got coming in 4.0, talk a little bit very quickly about all of the ships that we've seen, and then have a look at a few of the other things as well, because there's been a couple of really interesting conversations that have popped up in the DGP Discord, and it's probably worth talking about a few of those bits at least, and kind of having a conversation around a couple of the rumours and things that I feel it might be worth kind of dispelling. But good evening to Soriak and to Del Kenobi as well. I'm glad to see you all in. So yeah, without further ado, I guess we'll kind of be jumping across, and I've picked this one mainly because I've not really had a look at them other than very, very briefly in the expo hall, but I didn't rent them, and I did. Well, I might have rented them, but I certainly didn't fly them. So let's have a look. We'll start with the two updated Hornets. You guys will know that I'm not a massive fan of what they did with the Mark II. I think the game, a Mark II should have come well after release. People have pledged the game's not out yet, and yet they're already invalidating ships. And rather than turn around to everyone that had one and saying, here's a token to upgrade your ship free of charge, yeah, you had to play for it. So I guess it was kind of there. But obviously not there for these people, and yeah, it was just a bit of a scummy move. Good evening, Chris. No, you haven't missed anything, mate. You are all good, my friend. And good evening to you too, Jodomo, or Jodomo. I can't. I'm not quite sure. I've been calling you Jodomo for so long. I've probably been getting it wrong, right? But yeah, so the two, it's not two new Hornets. That it's new. Like I've got a new broom. It's had 7 new brush heads and 3 new handles. But, interesting, a slightly down-gunned version of the F7C, in exchange for some abilities, be it stealth for the Ghost, and then the variant that I quite like is the Tracker, because it's a very interesting notion. It's giving you a little bit of that kind of airborne early warning, whilst still being in a fighter package. So you don't have to give a slot over to things like a Terrapin or whatever else. So that's quite nice when you need to keep that punch in your, that offensive kind of firepower. So I quite like this. I'm a fan, notwithstanding everything I've just said about what they've done with the Mark II. Yeah, I think the other strength that comes with the tracker specifically is in a dogfight, it's going to take a little while. It doesn't stand out like other ships. At a quick glance of something flying past, you're going to see a Hornet. You know, it's not going to stand out as obviously as a Terrapin or, you know, something that's not of the same body type would. So I think they're good fun. Yeah, and then paints. I mean, yeah, sure, they're paints. That's kind of it. So having a Mark 1 is a badge for early supporters, 100%. And, you know, I almost feel like potentially they could have done the, hey, thanks very much for buying the Mark 1. You're getting a Mark 2 as well. Because I feel like not a lot of people will keep their Mark 1. So, yeah, I guess I just don't like the way they handled it. But other than that, if you see things moving, it's because I got the window open because it's really warm in here at the minute, which is weird for Britain in December now. But yeah, I've just cracked the window open. So if stuff starts moving or I suddenly go, and try and catch stuff, it's because the wind's blowing through. But yeah, not much to say about those, really. Expensive, again, for fighters. Quite expensive in terms of where the cost has gone from the, from the original Hornet. It's a bit of a jump, but yeah. Doc Cop says, yeah, I imagine the tracker working mixed in with a fighter package rather than for release like a Terrapin. Yeah, exactly that. Almost like a kind of a fighter control sort of thing that's going on within a wing of these things would be very, very cool. I am Sace. Good evening. How are you? Woter Hike. Burger Pops. Good evening. Haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you all. Monster Raven says the Mark II, at least in the data files from what I saw, a straight upgrade in specs. Not sure if any point beyond collectors. Yeah, I think that's it, right? And we had a very similar conversation about ships that come with the concierge package that, you know, effectively, when you hit the $15,000 mark, you're getting a ship that other people could buy for $300, a little bit cheaper if they, you know, are clever about it. You know, and it's like, well, if it's something unique, people are accused of fear of missing, you know, CIG are accused of fear of missing out. If it's not unique, you know, people complain because the level of money that it's at. So yeah, I think it's, I think that's why giving people one for free as well, if that, yeah, or letting them keep theirs and then getting a free upgrade too. I think that worked for exactly the reason that you're talking about. But yes. So anyway, I don't want to go too much on and whinge about this one, but they are what they are, right? And until we see a little bit more about the, you know, how the Ghost is going to work and how it compares in terms of stealth and all that sort of stuff, yeah, it's hard to kind of talk about that. Yeah. Hey, Stunner, good to see you, my friend. This one I find really interesting because I actually really like this ship. I'm just struggling to find a slot in my fleet, and I'll tell you for why in a little while, I guess, if we get around to it. But I actually really like the Terrapin Medic. It feels to me like the ship that would be doing exactly what was on screen just then. It's the parajumpers, the pararescue guys, going into a hot LZ, taking fire, getting casualties out, and then shifting again. Because of its armor, you know, if you're not aware, the Terrapin is incredibly armored for what it does. I really like that style of gameplay. Having a tier 2 is a definite nice to have as well. And I actually really like what they've done with the interior. The fact that you've got the glass doors to seal off the kind of engineering and cockpit section. I think that's a really nice touch. Yeah, I'm a fan of this ship. Came out at the same price as the Terrapin, which it needed to really. It's also getting a bit congested in that area, right? This is what, $30 less than the Triage, and it only has one tier 2 bed, whereas obviously the Triage has two sides. You can get 3 tier 3s, 2 tier 2s, or 1 tier 1 on each side. So yeah, I think that's probably a fairly reasonable indication that the Triage will go up significantly when it goes for its price range. But yeah, My main package is the Spectre gaming package. It was upgraded to the F7A. I don't need the Mark II, but I do miss the Ghost, says Shinobi. Yeah, I get that. There's something really cool about flying a Hornet Ghost, right? I quite like that. Any news on the Mirror Guardian and the Misk Fortune? I know they said 4.0, but there's no pre-sale question mark. No, it looks like 4.0 for both. Hopefully that'll be this year, but we'll see. Yeah, they're just not ready. As for the Misk Fortune, I'm not sure. I still think, because of the unfortunate nature of the name of that ship, I'm I'm being stubborn. I still have yet to be convinced that it's even a thing. I think this is another Raptor, because the Misk Fortune is a really unfortunate name if that's what they've actually gone for. Maybe it's just the code name, right? But yeah. Hello to Edison, to Chris, to Apteryx, Rash Mordor, Sol. Good evening, all. Good to see you. Thank you for coming in. It's a Terrapin with a med bed. What's there to justify? I got one right away, says Chris. Absolutely. Yeah, it just looks, to me, this makes more sense for the Terrapin than the actual scanner version. Yeah. But yeah, good looking ship. Again, not very armored, but then again, not very armed. Very armored, not very well armed. But then again, combat search and rescue birds, aren't they? And they tend to work in tandem with other aircraft that are there to provide fire support for them. Maybe a big gunship. Maybe something with a really big turret on it. I don't know. We'll have a look, shall we? But yeah, really like it. I must admit, I'm not a massive fan of the skins, though. If I was going to go for any, it would be the Medrunner-esque skin, this one, the Terrapin. But things like the Seabed and the Felicity, not a massive fan of either of those, to be honest. But other than that, not a bad-looking ship, I've got to say. So yeah. And then, obviously, again, around until December 5th. So, for the 10-year. So yeah, tasty. I don't know. I still think I might be able to. The problem I've got is at the moment where this sits, it sits perfectly at the constellation level, but you can't go from one to the other at War Bond, so that's not happening. And the War Bond from the Vulture is still fairly tasty in terms of price. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll figure it out. Speaking of gunfire support for a ship doing combat search and rescue, the Paladin. I'm sure most of you here will have seen it already, but I did a video on the Paladin yesterday that included the update from CIG that said the dual turrets on the wings, when it's low crew, can be slave to the pilot. We still don't know whether or not they're going to be fixed forwards. They're going to be, have some sort of mobility. We don't know. That detail doesn't exist yet. When in pilot mode, but yes, quite a tasty looking ship. Much more of a fan of it on the outside than I am on the in. But yeah, the problem is with the cutaways is the cutaways never tell the whole story, right? And especially when they've got rooms and they've not labelled them up, it may make perfect sense when it arrives. Just don't know. But it is a very good looking ship from the outside, and the fact that it's got blast shutters for the cockpit as well is very, very cool. I bought the Terrapin Medic, says Wooter, but it does not have a gun rack. It's supposed to rescue peeps, and in future we can't wear armor inside ships. So I think what they've said now is they've kind of wound back a bit from that, Wooter. Is what they were saying is that now if you wear armor in ships and it's not the pilot style armor, you won't be able to pilot it as effectively because you're very bulky when you're flying. I think they have dialed back from the you can't have armor in ships. So I think you'll be on right on that front. I think the point of this thing, the Terrapin, because it's only a one person, as a pilot, you don't want to get out of the seat, right? You want to be ready to go. I think for a lot of this is going to be troops on the ground bringing their injured to you, putting them in the ship, they get out, and then you take off again. Not possibly the best in terms of solo gameplay, but that's what it looks like it's there for. Apollo, to me, seems to be a significant upgrade, says AV. If in a risk area, just hide the Apollo in some cover, use the drones to recover injured peeps. Yeah, so the Apollo medevac will obviously be able to use its drones and go and rescue people. Yeah, it would be interesting. Depends kind of like how vulnerable the drones are, I guess, because you don't want to be losing those necessarily. But you'd think with a name like the Medevac and the fact that it goes to pick up down pilots after, battles and things, it would be fairly resilient. Is that what we're calling it now, Shinobi? Is it? I would love to see the trauma pins flying in a jump town event, providing people don't shoot down medical ships. Yeah, I think that's going to be a really interesting kind of way of figuring it out. Like, are people in the game going to give medical ships a free pass because one day it might be you needing them, or is that going to get abused by people just like all piling into one in suits with oxypens and then piling out and killing everyone when they land? I mean, yeah, I think that's going to be more a role play element than anything else. Actually, in the same vid where they say Guardian in 4.0, they also showed a Prospector. They said Misfortune there also. I must have missed that. Thank you for the update. Yeah, in that case then, maybe it will be the Misfortune. And if they've said it, then all right, I'll buy it. As in, I accept that its name is the Misfortune, not that I'm going to purchase it. But yeah, fair enough. Jotcop says, I'm on the verge of a massive reshuffle of my fleet. All the capital's gone. Everything in the 3 to 5 player range. Interesting, Jotcop. Did you manage to get any of the Polaris gameplay in over like the Save Stanton event or anything else? Because that's an interesting way to go. Also bought the Paladin, says my brother thinks it looks nothing like the Valkyrie. I still feel like it's just going to be a rework. Yeah, I think it's got both, right? It's got stylings from a number of different things. Don't think it is the Valkyrie itself, but yeah, it's certainly of that breed, right? It certainly looks that sort of way. So we know how well the Paladin sold in 24 hours, says Shadyface. Good evening, also, by the way. We've got an inkling, so we know what they made yesterday. That doesn't mean that it was all the Paladin, but we do know what they made. So stand by, we'll go and have a look at that in a second. Yeah. Love the cockpit, the way the crew is all together and the turrets are remote. Yeah, so there's some really nice images in this, and I guess that's the one that you're talking about. The idea that we're coming out on rails, and I wouldn't mind betting that you're actually all in the same space on that. I don't think there is a separation there. I think you're all in the same bit, and the top guys are just coming out on rails. Don't know, but it is an interesting concept for show. Yeah. You aren't going to be pulling any crazy maneuvers in the Terrapin anyway. It flies like a cruise ship, 100%, and I think that's going to apply to the Paladin as well. I don't think the Paladin's going to be particularly maneuverable. I think it's going to be around the Redeemer in terms of how maneuverable it gets. I can't wait till they nerf the Paladin into the ground once it releases, just like the Redeemer. Yeah, I know. So a lot of people have talked about like the Paladin and the Redeemer in terms of nerfs and stuff. I think the thing is we don't know how well it's going to do yet. I think there's a lot of people in it for a four player ship in terms of what it's able to do. It's also very big. I mean, 53 meters is a big old target for smaller ships to hit. I don't know. We'll have to see. You know what? Because once they've got engineering in and stuff, and we know where ships' weak points are, and you know if you want to hit this ship, try and hit it around this area because this is where the components are located. All that sort of stuff. We'll have to see how that works out. Good evening, Scott. Good to see you. I'm an Anvil fanboy and I bought the Paladin, but do you feel like CIG's completely failed to read the room? Everyone wants an Anvil capital ship, but we got a Valkyrie-sized gunship. Yeah, I guess that's one way of looking at it. I guess the other way is that everyone assumed that it was going to be an Anvil capital ship, and there was no indication that it was going to be that. I know we all want a capital ship. I think at the moment, though, looking at where they are in terms of, we know that they're working on things like the Ironclad, so they'll be working on Drake. The Kraken may well be within that lineup as well. They've got the Perseus coming. The Galaxy looks like it's been shunted a little bit. But yeah, there's a lot for them to work on. And I think with capital ships now, everything below capital, everything below Polaris 890 jump in that region, that space is beginning to feel more and more and more congested. Once you go past the Polaris, you've got the Javelin and the Idris. So that space is very, very empty. And given the fact that they talked about building capital ships and all that sort of stuff, it sounds like they're intending to expand into that space. I think they're just figuring out what they want to do. There was some really nice kind of thoughts around it. There was a Info Runners episode I was part of as to what an Anvil capital could look like. And it was things like an E-warfare capital ship, a straight-up bruiser battleship like the Perseus on steroids. The idea of something like, I don't know, a drone control ship where it's all combat drones and you kind of fight it like that. Something like out of Ender's Game, where the drones aren't being piloted by real people, they're being piloted by computer. There's lots of stuff they could do with it, but we'll have to see. Wow, Shinobi. Holy moly, I've sold 4 Polari this IAE. And I've fresh recycled cash burning holes in my PayPal account. Not sure if I should grab the Trauma Turtle, the Paladin, or both. But I'm an Anvil simp, so losing the battle. Yeah, I get that. 100%. But yeah. Paladin has aspects of the Valk and the Legionnaire. Yes, it does. And it also has, if you look at where the turret is, this bit up here is very much the Hornet. That's not the best angle. That is. This bit here around the turret is very, very Hornet. Very Hornet. So yeah. I quite like it. CRG seems to be giving ships that the audience doesn't really want. I mean, I think parts of the audience, sure. We haven't had racing ships in an age, which is why that was the Paragon, right? Was that the Firebird? I can't remember now. Whichever one the racing one was, that's what we got. So that'll keep the racers happy. Yeah, I think what they're obviously figuring out is just how much work the capital ships are, and I'll come on to that a little bit more when we look at the Polaris, because there's a couple of things that really stand out to me on it. And I know other people have mentioned little bits or maybe all, I don't know. But certainly the one I had a look around, there's a couple of things. Yeah. So I hope the top right doesn't spill his cup there. Oh, this here. Yeah, that's all. That's why they're wearing armor, obviously, because you don't need a boiling hot mocha frappuccino latte thing falling on your head while you're in the middle of combat, do you? That's just going to be not good. I did crew up a Polaris, said Jock Cop. Great fun, but there's going to be so many of them around. There'll be one to crew if I want. Yeah, 100%. I completely get that. Obviously at the moment there's probably enough players to crew all the capital ships that we own. We saw that just how many Polaris were out doing Save Stanton before the sale was utterly ridiculous. So yeah, they're obviously a very popular ship. When we did ours, we managed to fully crew one on our Friday Night Ops. Guys, if you wondering what the hell I'm talking about, Friday Night Ops on the Discord server, link in the thingy. Come and join. Doesn't cost you anything. You get community member tags. You don't have to sub to anything. You don't have to be anything like that. Just come in, be a chill person. You can come and join us on Friday Night Ops every Friday, 9 p.m. UK time. We get whatever's going at the moment. So we got a bunch of people through Save Stanton. We got a fully crewed Polaris. We had people flying out of the hangar. We had gear on board. The armories were stocked. All that sort of thing. And we went fighting and just the whole coordination stuff on board. Absolutely loved it. If that's where capital ship gameplay is going, boy oh boy am I happy. It's incredible. Getting those 4 torps up and then salvo firing them in from a long way away so the PDCs don't kill us. But yeah, that was so good. Just really, really cool. And I'm hoping that just continues. What was also nice to see about Save Stanton was how long it took the Idris to die Because I know people will be like, oh, I've been shooting it for ages and it's not exploded. But turning that around, if you imagine being on the Idris, it looked like there was ample time for you to go and do some repairs, run around, put out fires, still be able to fight the ship. It wasn't insta-death. And when you take into account things like Death of a Spaceman and all that, the capital ship gameplay really seems to be headed in the right direction. The bit that I really like was in IE when Rich Tyra was talking about the capital ships and soft deathing. He talked about rescuing crew off them because the ship's soft deaths. You've now got 14 people on there potentially who need rescue, and then all of a sudden you think back to the Squadron 42 trailer and that bit where the King ship uses that beam weapon and cuts the back end off of the Argus, the battleship, and you hear Mark Strong go, I want every available support craft to rescue survivors, you kind of go, that's not just a cool line for a film. That's how it's going to work. That's gameplay. And like that for me is when I know I'm geeking out a little bit here, but that is when they're getting it right. When all those really cool lines that normally you only hear in trailers and films and don't really convert into the gameplay itself suddenly kind of appear in the game itself in gameplay form. Yes, winning. Sorry, really excited about cap ships. Yeah. So I need to go up. Have you been in a Redeemer recently? It came super maneuverable compared to before. Yes, absolutely. Compared to before, the seasons turn faster than the Redeemer did. But yes. Apteryx Gaming says Paladin maneuverability appears to be less of an issue as a fully crewed Paladin has no blind spots, which does set it apart from somewhat. If you are near it, you can shoot it. Yeah, I think, it's like many things, there'll always be, there's blind spots and then there's areas where you're struggling to bring your weapons to bear. And I think that's it, two size 4s. When you're on one side low and the turret is high and the other side turret can't track you and then the turret moves, so you just reposition as the fighter. I think, it's going to struggle. The other thing is just the sheer area that you've got to hit with that thing. I don't need to be accurate in a fighter to hit a paladin. The paladin, if it's fighting, say, an arrow or whatever, is going to need to be a lot more accurate. And obviously the maneuvers the arrow can pull is going to struggle as well. I think that's a nice balance. My poor galaxy, says Takara God. Yeah, I get that. Redeemer equals helicopter that flies in, wreck stuff and flies out. Paladin, flying tank that flies in, wreck stuff and stays to brawl. That's an interesting way to put it. And I think this is the other thing as well, is that the way this game's being developed, when you look at what they're intending to do with the gameplay and how it's all going to work, combat is one element of it. This isn't like, a lot of the games where you get combat and then you've got a little bit of crafting to do on the side and then you've got a little bit of, pick a gathering profession to do on the side. This is, those gameplay loops are going to be fully fleshed out. So at the moment, the Redeemer guys are going to be feeling like they've been kicked in the nuts, and I sympathise, but the Redeemer can carry troops into combat. And this can't. So that role is going to be important. We've just seen bases. We've seen how important ground stuff is going to be to this. Being able to go in with a Redeemer, provide that level of fire support, and deliver troops on the ground is a significant advantage over something like the Paladin. So yeah, that's going to be key, right? Because you can't hack nothing from inside a Paladin. So yeah. And Citizen Scott has just said exactly the same thing as well. I do think we're getting a capsized concept until they clear that large ship backlog a bit. I don't think, sorry, Jock Cop says. Yeah, I think they've got some big ships. When you look at the Banu Merchantman, we've got the Idris coming out of Squadron 42. Polaris is out. Kraken. There's a lot for them to do. Perseus, Galaxy, all that sort of stuff. They've got some stuff to work on. The Ironclad. And, the whole series, there's still a lot of big ships they need to do. And, they're getting there. They're getting there, but there's work. The Redeemer is a fun multiplayer ship. It needed a competitor, an alternate. Yeah, and like the other thing I see is like people talking about the nerfing of the Corsair with regards to the Paladin, and I just don't see it. We all sat there at CitizenCon and watched that thing on the screen, and they talked. But that's weird. I don't know why it's doing that. It doesn't work with that hand, but it does with that one. I don't know. But yes, and I've completely lost my chain of thought. So oops, sorry. But yeah, there is definitely competitor needed for the Redeemer. I don't know, where was I? Someone remind me. I got taken with the whole whoop. See, but yeah. So Ward says, what do you feel about the supposed change that the pilot can control the 4 size 4 guns of no turret guns and uses guns? So yes, it's not a supposed change; it's confirmed. If you go and have a look, I've got the video up, and in the description, it's actually got the link to the Spectrum post from Xylo that says that they will be able to control it. Yeah, I think, depending on how those guns work in terms of fixed, whether they effectively do a bit more gimbling on the forward arc, it's still going to be the problem with the pilot controlling them is it's going to be need to point at its target to be able to hit it. Most of the damage at that point in the threat will come from that quad size 5 on top or the bottom, depending on where the turret is. Yeah. The part around the turret should inspire Hornet as it's an naval ship. Yeah, 100%. But there's lots of ships, I think, where you see things and they don't necessarily speak. You see bits and you go, I don't know, I'm not sure. But yeah, I get your point entirely. Can't wait to see CIG change the main turret to 4 size 4 bespoke reads unchangeable ballistic cannons. Yeah, I doubt that's going to happen, Richard, in terms of that it doesn't look like it's got much internal storage at all in terms of ammo. So I don't think that's gonna happen. What they're talking about with a lot of ships, certainly the Perseus and other that is the ballistics are going to be able to be reloaded from the inside, so you'll be able to have them interior to the ship and then go load them onto the belt or whatever, and then the ship will continue firing, almost like their own magazine storage sort of thing. So I don't think it's going to go that way. So yeah, in general, there's too much focus on pew pew when they still don't even know how combat's going to look down the road. I mean, I think they've got a fair idea. They've got an idea of what they want it to look like, and they're obviously driving towards that. Whether they achieve that in reality, only time will tell. But like I said, in terms of the Polaris, what I really like about that, in terms of what you're saying, Scott, is that the Polaris really struggled against the Idris until the PDCs were down, which is exactly what they were describing. Don't use the torps until the PDC's down. So that bore out. It wasn't like they were saying that and everyone was just like, ha ha ha, click, and the Idris disappeared. That actually worked. And it was tough to get the shields down. If you were in a Polaris by yourself and you were trying to chip those shields away, with twin size 6s, quad size 4s, and then, little pew pews on the side, you really did struggle to knock those shields down. So not only did I see the dynamic between the Idris and the Polaris, it was really clear where the Perseus sits in that combat. And I really like that. The fact that you go, oh, I get why the Perseus is here now, because the Perseus deals the big damage, strips the shield down, start taking the armor down, does some really big hits, whilst, hopefully also knocking out PDCs and stuff like that. And then the Polaris finishes it off with that massive alpha strike from its torps. That's a really nice kind of comparison of the two ships. Like that a lot. So yeah. Must admit, I've enjoyed being crew on the Polaris, says Blamsmith. Good, I'm glad to hear it. I can actually see the Paladin keeping its loadout as is long term. Yep, 100%. 100% even. Enough time to replace components, I agree. Yeah, that was really nice to see that work with the Idris, even one that is flown as poorly as an AI one. Consider that's the old Idris, not the Squadron 42 ship. Yeah, so that one was, I think it was boarded a couple of times, but every time we board it after soft death, the interior reverted to the old one, because you couldn't go in and then like loot people and stuff. So yeah. Good evening, Major Star Stuff. Good to see you, buddy. People are overreacting over the Paladin because they saw the Quad 5 turret. The real ship that tramples over the new Paladin Redeemer is the Starlight attack. The attack brings more capability. Yeah, you know, the attack's obviously, again, is its own thing, right? The attack, I guess, is trying to be somewhere between dropship and AC-130, the Spectre gunship. But also, again, size on that is a bit of an issue. So I think they don't walk at, none of these ships walk over the other ones. They all have their niche, right? I think there's a genuine place for a lot of these ships in the game, especially when you start considering things like range, oxygen for supporting other crew and people that you're dropping, armor, all of those things. I think that they'll start building themselves into niches that are really hard to see right now because we don't have that sort of stuff. Also, things like, you know, redundancy of systems. So having a couple of power plants rather than one, having, you know, a couple of shield generators rather than, you know, two, having a couple more than that, all that sort of stuff. These ships are going to start to develop their own, oh, right, this is how I want to use this in the future. Just right now, they all seem, you know, it all comes down to weapons, because up until now, that's really all that's mattered. People out we can use this now, but it's still a freaking beast, 100%. It feels like there's a lot of salty Redeemer owners. I think it's just different, right? I think what happened with some people, and I'm not naming anyone in here. What I'm saying is I'm not pointing at anyone here, but I think there are some people who bought the Redeemer for the firepower, ignorant of the dropship capability that it has, and are now going, oh wait, but my ship that's designed to provide fire support and drop troops is outgunned by that ship that is just designed to provide fire support. And everyone else is going, yes, because you're multi-role and that isn't. So if you're a multi-role ship that had more fire than the ship that's only supposed to provide fire support, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So I think these things are going to work themselves out. And if you're sat there going, but I don't care about the dropship module, congrats, it looks like the Paladin might be for you. So that, right? It's all good, I think. Ballistic ammo will probably be single SCU boxes fed into a small cargo elevator. I think reverse vulture pathing. Oh, Shinobi, what a way of putting it. Just like, oh, I got a mental image. Excuse me, I need to clean the taste out of my mouth. Ugh. Yeah. So, there's not enough bleach in the wild to get rid of that. Excuse me 2 seconds. Thought you wouldn't want to hear that, so just muted myself. But socially, hello. That was an unfortunate point to join us. Good to see you. Yeah. So, really want to see someone change a hammerhead loadout to anti-material cannons and see how well it can perform in a big ship battle. Well, this is what I find interesting about the whole cap ship thing. Again, from the IAE show, from what they're talking about, the idea that you strip the shields down and then you damage those point defense cannons. And they directly quoted, you know, that Cal Mason, when he comes in, he kites the Vandal ship into the generator. He said that's part of the role of these fighters. So you can see now, when people go, oh, the hammerhead's useless. No, it doesn't have any role. It does have a role. So when your big ship the shields are about to fail, just like they did with the Javelin, they can do this with a hammerhead. You know, whatever the name of it. Hammerhead, this is capital ship. We're about to lose our shields on our port side. We need you to come in and hold station until we manage to get our shields back up. And they sit there and they keep all the fighters away with all that ridiculous turret fire. Also, how cool was it in that opening sequence where the two of them just sped forward through all the fighters and all the fighters are exploding? Sorry, it was really cool. I was really excited by it. Yeah. Sticking ammo boxes up the and I'm going to stop there. But yes, that's kind of cool. But yeah, but you're right. Hammerhead it'll be interesting to see that sort of stuff. I'm always interested to see what people do with these ships. But I can see the role of the Hammerhead now, that coming in and keeping people off. keeping people away, protecting that ship's vital systems while the shields reform, and then off they go to the next thing. I'd love it. I think that's a really nice touch. Stunner says, I would have bought it for the firepower if those wings weren't just so ridiculous. Dodged a bullet there, phew lol. Ah, there's nothing wrong with stubby little wings, bless it. It's going to struggle, right, in VTOL mode. But yeah, what I like about this is one of the few ships where I say I genuinely like both paints. I do. I genuinely like both paints on this thing. I think it looks beastie in both of those. It's a really, really nice touch. So yeah, really, impressed. Again, a little bit expensive. I've kept it in dollars here just so like it doesn't get confusing and whatever else. I might pick up a Shadowfall paint for it just in case I do end up getting it. And I know poor old Can has just had a bit of a fit there because I've talked about buying paints again. But I might do it. So yeah. Just hope next year we're getting more stability and some fun back into the game, to be honest. I don't care about ships that much. Gameplay is all I want. Yeah, so, Wuta, I mean, I think part of it here... I'm not telling you you're wrong. I'm not telling you you're wrong. This sort of stuff kind of makes me feel a little bit depressed about stuff because there are the possibilities for some really fun gameplay in here. It all depends on the people you play with, whether you play with people. Some of it is really, really good fun. Like sometimes I'm off doing bunkers by myself, and the AI is not Derp Team 6 because I'm on a low pop server. It's SEAL Team 6, and I get my backside handed to me, and all of a sudden I jump into Discord and I'm like, can someone come and rescue me? And it builds this whole rescue mission. Then we go back because I left my P8 AR on my body, and we go and rescue my kit, and then we're off to do something else, and you get this kind of organic growth. So it does happen, I promise. It is there. I know the stability hurts, but I'm really hoping that in the 6 to 12 months after server meshing, as you say, we get a little bit more stability and a little bit more server performance, and things start to improve on that front. I agree. Yeah. I sense the Thundercloud paint and the Shadowfall. Is there? A little bit, I guess. Yeah, with some of the tones, I suppose I can see that. But yeah. Oh, I was talking about the Redeemer, not the Paladin. It says, oh, I see what you mean, Stunner. What, the Nutcrackers on the Redeemer? I quite like him. I know I'm just weird. Like, people shouldn't talk to me about ships. I clearly just don't know what I'm talking about. I'm like, but I like that. That's the problem with the Terrapin Medic for me, is that I have the C8R because it's my bunker ship. I like the Apollo because I like the gameplay that I think it's going to offer. So I've got a CCU chain up to Apollo. I've got a $20 Nurser because it was built off of a referral Steve. And of course now I don't know what to do with that because whatever I make it up to, I can't melt it. I can't get the value back. So I've got to be really sure about what I upgrade it to. So I'm kind of like, before we go and even consider the Terrapin Medic, I got 3 medical ships. So I get where you're coming from. Yeah. I think the issue with the dropship variant would have been that it would just been an upgun Valk on this thing. Oh, the Paladin. I see what you mean. Yeah, no, I very much doubt it. I very much doubt it. I think potentially what this might work as is like a hostile bunker or a hostile base attack ship, is that you go in with a team heavily armed. They've got all their gear in that space at the back of the ship, and you go in, you wipe out the base defenses, and then you get out and storm it with all your kit. Potentially, that might be a way. But then again, you need something with a cargo, but maybe you've got someone with a cargo ship that doesn't fight, who comes in once you've cleared the defences out and you raid it. Well, I think it could do that quite nicely. But yeah, the 2 hair straighteners counts as wings, I guess. Chris, blasphemy, how very dare you. Yeah, just get all the medical ships, says Socially. It's your plan. I mean, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm kind of maxing out on them. Speaking of maxing, I apologise if I get this wrong, but Maxol TV, good evening. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully I pronounced that right. If not, tell me off and I'll get it right, I'm sure, at some point. Realistically, I can see them spending next year really ironing out meshing, and 12 months from now we'll have 1,000 player shards that actually work. Yeah, I think The one thing I will say is just bear in mind, right, that with networking, minor issues can have major implications. So they might miss something completely minor that ends up locking the servers up until they find it and fix it. So meshing will come in, there might be an immediate improvement, and then things improve, and then all of a sudden with one of the patches something will happen and we won't be able to get in, and it will be the dumpster fire that 318 was. Just brace yourselves, it's gonna happen. Because of how intricate this is, and the fact that when they build anything else, right, when you build a 64-player server or a 128-player server for another game, everyone's made stupid mistakes and they've learned from them. So you've got loads of, experience. People have either made the mistakes or they've learned from others and made the mistakes. That doesn't exist for this yet. No one's made the mistakes yet, so they're going to make all of them. Right? They're going to make every single one of them because they're the only ones doing it. They don't get to learn from anyone else because no one else is doing this. And even if they were, why would you share that with a rival company, right? So, yeah, it's going to be rough. There are going to be moments. Just bear with it. Just give it time. They want to turn out a great game. I think what I've seen from the cap ship really enthuses me as to these big ships, and server meshing is going to be vital for stuff like that. They need to be able to spin up servers and go, we've just had 7 cap ships arrive in this very small space. That's going to need its own server. So yes, in order to support that, they need to get it right. Doesn't make it less frustrating when it happens to us, but yeah, I get it. Okay, let's go on to whatever one of these is. Yeah, well, let's do a little bit of, I don't know, let's do a little bit of controversial ship before we get to the Polaris. Yeah, Intrepid, starter ship, cargo ship. What I like about it is that it's like a microcosm of the game. It's got a gun. It's got an dedicated engineering space with engineering console. It's got a fully modeled interior. It's got cool little cargo things that swing down. It's got the bed. It's got all that sort of stuff for people. So for someone who wants all of that in one ship, because I asked this in the Discord, what ship after the Intrepid has a modelled engineering space with an engineering console? And how much does that ship cost? Because if that's your gameplay loop, if you want to do the engineering stuff, if you want to be Scotty from Star Trek and you want to do the engineering stuff, in order to do that, you had to buy a massive ship. And I'm always in favour, whatever people think about the ship itself, I am always in favour of them lowering the price point for that to happen. And the Intrepid did that, so congrats, CIG. Sulen, I don't think it's got an engineering console, has it? It's got the engineering space down below, unless they've changed it. Yeah, so the Zeus is the next one up, right? So you're talking almost double this, I think. So yeah, so they've halved the price for someone who wants to come in with the engineering consoles. And that's no bad thing. Yeah, and I know there's the MFD stuff, but I think looking at those consoles, I think they're going to bring in some sort of benefit for having them. Kind of like the Odyssey and the Aquila and the Carrack are all explorers, but the Carrack has that dedicating mapping room, which is going to make it better at doing that thing. It doesn't make it do anything that anything else can't do in terms of explorers. It's just going to be better at it for jump point mapping. So yeah, that'll be interesting. Intrepid has wings that act as a constant air brake. What's not to love? Ain't nothing wrong with a little bit of air brake. We like the air brake. Yeah. The Sudan probably get an engineering console in the near future. I don't know if they've said that, then yes. But yeah, I'm not sure. It's really kind of compact in the ship already as it is. There's not a lot of space. I got one. I really like it. I'm not dissing the Sulen. It's really cool. But yeah, Aries Everhart, good evening, good to see you. So, doesn't that make you think that they'll go back and change the other starters? No, not necessarily. I don't, introducing things, sure, they're going to have to go and do the component stuff, 100%, but I don't think that everything is necessarily going to get a dedicated engineering console. I think you'll do it through the MFDs, and it will limit what you can do because they're MFDs. Whereas the engineering might be able to give you a little bit more control or whatever. For example, an engineering console might give you the ability to open and close the panels at will, open and close doors where the MFDs might not. Don't know, but just as an example. Yeah, Carrack is so good, says Aries. Yeah, the Carrack is a really nice ship. I'm putting together a fleet builder episode, hopefully for Friday. And yeah, it's really hard to get away from the Carrack as some of the things that I want to do. But yeah. The Intrepid shield bug with a size 1 shield split into 4 faces makes it dangerous to fly at the moment. To say, oh dear, I won't be flying that in combat then. The Cutter will get an engineering console, I reckon, says Blamsmith. I didn't think I would like it because of its specs, but I really like it because of how it handles functionality, ranges, interior. I think it's going to be one of those ships that grows. So I got one of these. That was Dell's fault, not mine. But yeah, I think it's going to be one of those ships that grows for just that reason. I think for its price point, it's not a bad little ship. Is it still a starter pack? I'm not quite sure. I'm sure it will be, right? What have I clicked on? Oh God. But yeah, that's a cute backside, if I do say so myself. But yeah, the interior, as Aries says, the interior is certainly something to recommend this ship. Yeah. So that's that one. Great stuff. Is it still a starter ship? Okay. Yes, it is. It's a starter pack. So yeah, great success. Okay. This thing. Absolutely this thing. Yeah. What I quite like about the bespoke turret is you can hear it. So I was in the pilot seat for the last one that we did on Friday, and you can hear this thing firing. It's so good. But yeah, chuffing great torpedoes. Nice missile turret at the back. The interesting thing about torpedoes, of course, is if you launch too close to the PDCs catch the torpedo. It explodes, wipes out your front shields, sends the cockpit and like the shoulder part of the ship red, and you spin out. So you've got to be a little bit careful with those size 10s because they don't come out. I think in one of the videos they said that the size 10s are double the damage of the size 9s. So yeah, no wonder. Twice we took this thing into combat and I needed to pay hefty repair bills for just that reason. Both times those repair bills were about the 1.6 million credit marks. We lost the front turret, we lost the missile systems on both sides. Yeah, it was some significant damage. Really quite crazy. But yeah, but it was really good fun with the ship to be able to have all those people in and then be calling out, top turrets, target the Idris, side turrets, anti-fighter, chin turret, Idris, and then, calling the torpedo strikes and how many you wanted. I want a full spread, look, we're going to back off to 6K to give them some flight time. And then watching these things arc in, the fact that you get the trail out the back of them was just superb. Really, really good experience. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. Um, Blamsmith says, "I must admit, I'd assumed all ships with interiors would get engineering consoles. Possibly. I'm not making a categoric statement. It's just at the moment I feel like it doesn't necessarily need that. You do have a little bit from the MFDs, but I guess we'll see when it goes to um, the patch or a couple of patches after 4.0 when they bring in the engineering gameplay and stuff, because obviously that's removed, and we'll have a look at that in just a second. So yeah, uh, 300 series in every way, says Scott. AV says, when it gets an update, it's definitely going to be nice. Yeah. Ares fell for the Paladin, reminding me a Hammerhead requires less crew. Nice. Ares, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit jealous that you're able to impulse buy a Polaris. So, you guys know I don't like talking about money with games. What I will say, however, is one of the things that I have gotten into is I've gotten into speculative CCUs. So this is buying like a war bond CCU to something you know is going to go up in price. One of those that I bought was the Perseus to Polaris. And the Polaris is what now, 950? So that $25 CCU that I bought is now worth $275. So, yeah. And obviously it'll be worth a little less when the Perseus goes up in price, because the Perseus will also release. But yeah. Ta-da! So that's quite good fun. And so it basically means, don't worry, I'm not getting rid of the Perseus. That is not happening. I'm keeping my Perseus. But it means that if I want a Polaris, if I can build a cheap chain up to the Polaris, up to the Perseus, I then have my Polaris. So the cost of my Polaris is $25 for that Warbond CCU, plus whatever it costs me to build a Perseus. And bearing in mind, I could do that now if I wanted to, melting other ships, and still keep my current Perseus, my Reclaimer, my C1. You know, that could happen. I just wipe out my fleet massively. So yeah. Oh, Zaveth, oh my, how far we've come. I remember a couple of years ago when you were not into CCUing at all. Welcome. Yeah, sorry, Zaveth. Blame Can. He's not in chat at the minute, but blame Can. That is 100% his fault. Natal Pritz, good evening. Mir, good evening. Good to see you all. So, yeah. Polaris with the Vulture in it. Live it for soloing and salvage. That is a big ass ship to solo, I've got to say. I just hate everything ballistic, says Wouter, since you can't reload them inside the ship. Yep, no, not yet, you can't. My main reason is the Ares Inferno. I can destroy one big ship and afterwards it's useless. Yeah, you gotta go and recharge. Although, having said that, we even did that with the Polaris. It's going to be really interesting when they get to the big stuff and you've got, like, you know, you fly a combat and then the Gemini comes in and then you refuel off the Gemini and you're getting ammo out the back to refuel, and, you know, you're transporting missiles across and all that sort of stuff. Also, respect to the Gemini pilots who are comfortable transporting size 10 torpedoes, because, nope, I'm all right, thanks. But yeah. The front turret is extremely expensive, hence the repair bill is high. Same as the Idris K costing a lot for the weapons. Imagine the size 7 on Perseus. I don't want to, Natal. I'm not going to lie. I don't want to go that way. Ares says, I can't wait for the Perseus. On paper, it's going to be my favourite ship, which on track to be my favourite ship. Low crew, big old cannons, and the armour to back it up. Yeah. I have a lot of time for its traditional battleship-esque lines. The bridge, high and central, the turrets looking like battleship turrets, the prow, yeah. Mwah, perfection in a starship. Maxwell TV says, just come back from a fight against an Idris. The PDC working very well for the pilot. We don't have to be worried about missiles, but that's not stopping the railgun shot. You need to maneuver well. Yeah, we got dinked once by the railgun in the Polaris, and luckily enough we tanked it. But it's a bit of a shock when you look at it and you go, oh god, it's trying to point at us and you're frantically trying to get out of the way. Because I already feel like the Polaris is a little bit too maneuverable. You know, I think forward it should have really good kind of maneuverability when it's going at its max SCM in terms of, you know, how well it turns and all that. But just going up, down the strafing, all that sort of stuff, I feel like it's far too quick at that. I don't feel like capital ships should get anywhere near that level of maneuverability, even for a small capital like the Polaris. Rusty Pigeon Gaming Channel, good evening. Good to see you, bud. Yeah. So Polaris I got last year during International Launch Week. Got it on display. It was just gorgeous. Yeah, I spent a lot of time. I got some crates into the cargo deck and we put armor in them. We got into there. We got the armory fully stocked up and all that sort of good stuff. Yeah, really, really good fun to sort the ship out. There's med guns in the med gun holders. It was good fun to fly around and just have everyone kind of talking to each other and communicating about the fight. And, obviously I kind of threw in a couple of lines from my time being in the Navy about, action stations and, command sit reps and all that sort of stuff. So that was good fun. Starfarer to Endeavour, $10. Yes, Scott, I have 2 of them now. Because I'm really, really kind of getting into that game. The Crucible Endeavour CCU, I got 1 Crucible, 2 Endeavours. Lol. That's the CCUs, not the full chain. I don't own the ships, just the CCUs. I actually started doing the same thing. Hope one day I can sell my Endeavour CCU and break even on the rest of my ships. Lol. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Perseus is still the sexiest ship in the game, says Chris. You're saying all the right things, my friend. But yeah, very close from a shot from the Idris cannons, says Maxwell. I manoeuvred at the last second. It was very cool to have this level of strategy and be proud of your piloting. Yeah, it feels like, to me at least, an achievement when you go out in your Polaris and you smash stuff around. It's good fun. Yeah. I wonder what the Harrison size 10 beam weapon will be like in comparison. I think it's going to be really interesting to watch that thing fire. I think it's going to be a really cool kind of visual effect. Today I switched to the Exploration 2950 Mega Pack, says Rusty Pigeon. It's like buying all ships for War Bond price. It's got some good upgrades and CCUs from most of the ships. Nice. You mentioned getting Perseus to Polaris upgrade. You plan to choose one of them and not both. So no. So my Perseus is my Perseus. I love the Perseus anyway, in and of itself. But the thing about my Perseus that makes it extra special, it was actually crowdfunded when I was part of the Info Runners channel. I was talking about the ship and said that even if I had the money for it, I probably wouldn't buy something as big as that because I'm saving up for a house at the minute. They basically got a CCU chain together using some pretty rare CCUs, and I got a very special Perseus put together for me and gifted to me on stream, and I had no idea this thing was coming. So that in and of itself is enough to make me not ever want to change that ship. The fact that it is my favourite ship in the game helps. So yeah, so if I do end up using the upgrade, I will absolutely be building a brand new ship, and I will have both of them. So yeah, got the Endeavour too, the Hope variant, says Pigeon. Nice. Yeah, I've got the upgrades, but not to any of the modules. It's just the core of the ship. Polaris is in the buybacks for now, says Jotcop. God, it's been a long weekend. Still got the Polaris loaner for the Perseus. Yeah, same. I'm really enjoying it. I will come and pick up all your Polaris pirates. Okay, cool. Happy with that. Nator says, I remember the stream when you were gifted the Perseus. Yeah, it kind of blew me away. Had no idea it was happening, and I probably took it like an absolute idiot because I'm British and I don't do people being generous. It freaks me out. But yeah, really, really nice. Having the hangar work and all that sort of stuff. I just need a button from the bridge, from the co-pilot seat that is open hangar, because I don't think it works very well. I just need it to be able to control without opening the entire exterior of the ship. But yeah. Yeah, so there's a couple of bits. If you remember a little while ago, I talked about capital ships being rushed, and I think the Polaris, sorry to those that really love it at the moment, the Polaris is a good example of this. Mornstar says liberator for the win. Well, Mornstar can get out. Just kidding, bud. Yeah, so there's a couple bits of the interior. Obviously, the lighting needs work in a couple of places. And I appreciate that they've gone for kind of like the austere... They've gone for the kind of very austere office with the brig, and the medical one seems to be a carbon copy of that, and I don't like that. I think the medical area deserves a lot more lighting. It deserves to be bright. It deserves to be a little bit more slightly more Carrick Medical Office rather than what it is at the moment. You know, the only thing that marks that room out as medical at all is the fact that it says it on the wall and that there's a med gun dispenser on the desk. And that's it. That's the only thing that makes that room medical. And CIG are normally much better at that. Obviously, the other things are things like the captain's quarters not being ready. I don't know if you've heard, the XO's quarters are no longer a thing. They've ditched it, so it's captain's quarters only in that space. And the other thing I think this needs more than anything else is it needs some sort of, well, there's two things. It needs weapon holders, but for the tractor beams down in the cargo bay. I know it has its own tractor beam, but it doesn't look out of the ship. So if you're getting stuff from the floor up, you want to use that sort of stuff, because sure, you can use things like the Atlas and everything else, but that's taking up space. So you probably don't want to be doing that. So yeah, there's that side of it. There's lighting, yeah, 100%. There's also the engineering area I actually quite like, but where that panel is and you're looking into the room through the glass, I do feel like on one side or both sides you need racks for the two-handed repair gun, which I'm sure we'll get at some point, and multi-tools with repair heads. Because why wouldn't you have stuff like that? And I know they're going to carry stuff around with them anyway, but you should have that so anyone can just pick that up and go around and... So yeah. Boozy through 3050. Good to see you, bud. I really wanted to put size 6 Dragon Gatlings on my Polaris, and they nixed it before I could. Yeah, so it's bespokes, isn't it, on the turret? So, yeah, bit of a shame, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. I understand giving up the Exo's quarters, which is mostly role play, for more functionality in the armory. Yeah, the armory. So I won't go too much more into this right now because I want to do a naval officer kind of reviews series about this. So yeah, bear with me. It's going to take some time, but very quickly I want to get a Polaris and a Hammerhead video out, like very close together. And then we'll do the Perseus when the Perseus comes out. And obviously I can't do things like fighters because they're more RAF or Air Force kind of weapon systems than they are for us. And I was a warfare officer, so I was fighting ships. I wasn't fighting from aircraft. But yeah, I think there's certainly some points that I can raise, and the armory you've just prompted is one of the places I think they can work on. But yes, we'll see. So yeah, what's interesting, Bouncemith, going down the like the accommodation route, is that's very much where the Navy is going right now. So much smaller rooms, communal spaces, all off one passageway. That's certainly where like the carriers and the 45s have started to go within the Royal Navy. So giving people a little bit more kind of space. But yeah. Bouncemith says, I feel like the bunk system on the Idris suits it better. Yeah, so that is very much kind of old style Navy, having all your bunks in one space. You wouldn't be open to both sides though. What they tended to do was you'd have your bunks and you'd have like a partition that would just run the length of the bunk beds, and the beds would be on both sides. So on one side you'd have privacy, on the other side you'd have privacy curtains. So you pull the curtains across, and then that was literally bunk beds 3 high, with overhead space of probably about enough for you to lay on your side, but you couldn't sit up in bed. There wasn't enough room, and that was it. That was all the space you had, and that was the only space on a warship to call your own for 8 months. Everything else was communal. You got changed in a space that wasn't wide enough to fit 2 people standing side by side. Yeah, it was rough for the boys and girls. So yeah, privacy screen. The Idris has privacy screens too. Yeah, so they have the bits and pieces that go up, so you can raise and like lower those. With the ones on a warship, they're permanent. They're actually like a fixed partition, like a drywall, basically. So you've got that on one side, and then you've got your curtains like the screens, except they're nowhere near as high tech on the other. That makes sense, I guess. I just feel like they kind of nailed the vibe of that type of ship with the quarters and the Polaris. Yeah, it's interesting. It's almost like they're kind of modelling the progression of naval ships. It's an interesting comparison. I'm fighting every day with the Polaris. For the last week, it's become my favourite ship, says Maxwell. My group each have one, so we can swap each every time we need to pay for repair and reload. Right, so you managed to claim it or something, not have to pay for it, and then swap out. Nice, like it. Got to get changed. Lay down. Yes, yeah, 100%. Yeah, so I was lucky that on the Type 23s, I had a single cabin. So as senior officer watch, you get your own cabin. So that was nice. And then on Illustrious, we had 2 bath cabins, but because we didn't have a battle staff embarked, you were in a cabin on your own, and the idea was that you would bunk with one of the battle staff to kind of incorporate them and integrate them into the ship's company. But we didn't have them on, so I had the cabin all to myself, which was lovely. So yeah, let's have a look then. What do we got next? Yeah, so someone mentioned much earlier on about how many paladins we think we've sold and all that sort of stuff. This is a funding tracker for the last few days. I'm just going to do this. Here we go. So we've broken the 750 million mark. Just makes my head spin that. You've got 24th is the Tuesday. So we've got the information up to yesterday. Yesterday, obviously, being the Anvil Day and the highest earning day of the entire series, unsurprisingly. You know, not bad money. What was interesting is, you know, the RSI Day still went up to 2.1 mil. But yeah, I can't see the Ghost and the Tracker selling huge amounts. The Terrapin was probably a part of that as well, but it looks like I would guess the lion's share of that 3.1 mil came from the Paladin. Sorry, Valkyrie. Freudian slip. That's not what I meant to say. But yeah, buy more ships quick. No. Buy only the ships you need to buy. There we are. But yeah. You know, and there's a couple of things in here that are probably worth mentioning. I'll zoom in again so they don't look tiny. But there are a couple of bits in here that are worth mentioning. What's interesting here is like 45 total missions. They're obviously back then still going for the style of like you complete a mission, you go back to the menu, then you go to the next mission, and so on and so forth. I don't think it's going to work like that anymore. So there's a lot of this. Here's an interesting one at the 4.5 mil mark. Star Citizen will feature an additional playable ship class, the Cruiser. We don't have any of those yet. So, as where they're going to go with cap ships, cruisers are bigger than destroyers. Just saying. If they stick with a World War II analogy, cruisers are much bigger than destroyers. So yeah, the carrier is a playable ship class. The Bengal, yep, great. We've also got a couple more of these. I can't remember quite what the level they're at, so bear with me because I'm going to have to scroll down. There we go. The Star Citizen will feature an additional ship class, the Escort Carrier, which is interesting. That's probably something like the Pegasus, which if you go to Hangar Link, you can see one of those. But yeah, I'll maybe pull that up now and we'll have a quick look. It's a very old model. I don't think it's going to end up looking like this when they put it in. But sorry, the voice in the back of my head went, "That's what she said." And this is why I'm not allowed nice things. So right, okay, let's pull it up quickly. The Pegasus. Okay, what's interesting is this for an escort carrier is only 100 meters less than the Bengal, so it's huge. But yeah, so there's that. So we've got that sort of thing as well. Right, I'm going to do this and I'm going to regret it, I'm sure. There we go. Okay, we've also got this. The Battle Cruiser. So battle cruisers were basically a go between battle cruisers and battleships. Battleships historically were slower than cruisers. So when destroyer, you had like frigate and corvette sat below them. Destroyer, cruiser, battle cruiser, battleship, and then the carriers. Cruisers had all sorts of like caveats on them. So you'd have light cruisers, heavy cruisers, AA cruisers, escort cruisers. You know, there was all sorts of different types of cruiser, according to World War Two. So according to the kind of fleet rosters that people had in World War Two. So yeah, battle cruisers, basically battleships were slower, so they tended to be about 17, 18 knots, but huge armament. Cruisers were much faster, smaller armaments, and the battle cruiser was an attempt, at least in the early days, to match the speed of the cruiser with the weapons of the battleship. That very quickly became outdated now and obsolete because battleships basically caught up. So the Bismarck was rapid, right? The Tirpitz, all those sorts of ships were not far off what escorts, what cruisers could achieve. So yeah, there you go. Yeah, so armored cruiser, Chris, again, would be one of those kind of. It would be an attempt to marry the armor of a battleship or a battle cruiser with the cruiser ship. But yeah, dreadnoughts. So yeah, so dreadnoughts were an interesting one. Dreadnoughts were an early version of battleships. So dreadnoughts were kind of like the precursors to battle to big ships. So a lot of the old ships, and you can see this if you ever play World of Warships, like that game is until you get to like tier 9, tier 10, that game is historically accurate with its representations of ships, if not how they performed and stuff like that. So those ships that like have like loads of weird turrets on the sides that move, like an old galleon style, except the guns instead of fixed pointing could do that. That's very accurate. Those ships were dreadnoughts, and then when you got to battleships with the turrets and everything else, that was kind of the evolution. So dreadnoughts, certainly at the outset of the First World War, dreadnoughts were very much a thing. Outside of the Second World War, they were the sign of a country that had a very weak navy. But yeah, so that's that. And the Graf Spee. So yes, the Graf Spee was an attempt to put battleship-sized weapons on a cruiser. And it worked. It was a terrifying thing. It just wasn't anywhere near as armored as something like the Tirpitz or the Bismarck. So yeah. Anyway, sorry for your impromptu history lesson. You came here for Star Citizen, and we ended up talking about stuff that happened like 80 years ago. Sorry about that. But yeah. Since they've said the Javelin is the biggest pledge ship a player can own, that means the cruiser escort carrier has to be crafted, not player owned and permanent, even when logged off. Don't know, Natal. Good question. I think all of that now is in flux. I think basically what they're waiting to do. It's okay, Grandpa. Shut up, Scott. Be rude. Deck plates cracked a lot, says Monster. Yeah, there's a lot of issues with the older ships. I think what they're waiting to do is they're waiting to see how effective server meshing is. Right? If server meshing achieves all that they are able to do, that they want it to do, I think we'll likely see bigger ships. The fact that when we first saw it, they talked about, the Bengal would be something you would have to find and repair, and now we saw that when they were talking about stations build capital ships, and the biggest ship they can fit is the Bengal. I get that fit isn't the same as build, but it looks like they're starting to lay a little bit of the groundwork that that's the way they want to go if they can get server meshing to work. I think the idea, go back 10 years, the idea that we could have lots of Bengals flying about the verse, I think a lot of people are sat there going, nah, like we can never achieve that in a game. And now they're looking at it and going, wait a minute, if we can get server meshing working, then maybe we can. So I don't know. I think they're kind of laying the ground. T Lillian, Wiggy One, good evening. Good to see you both in. Thank you very much for joining us. Mornstar, I don't know if I said good evening to you, but if I didn't, good evening, and if I did, you got it twice, so well done you. But yeah, sorry, so I'm just going to catch up. Because Wiggy, you said something a little while ago I just wanted to respond to. You said something a long time ago I wanted to respond to. Not sure about applying my Perseus to Polaris CCU for a $350 Polaris yet. Wow. Don't have the crew. What do you guys think? I'm sure the guys have have answered a lot of this, but I would you could always wait and see, right? I would certainly, because you got the Perseus, so you can fly the Polaris anyway right now. When the Polaris comes out, have a look and see how you feel, because there might be one ship that you go, no, don't like this, and that answers the question for you. I think for a lot of this stuff, the problem with the really big ships, and I said this in a capital ship video I made a little while ago, is getting enough people on regularly that want to be crew regularly rather than do their own thing. Right? That's going to be the challenge with Star Citizen multi-crew. So yeah, I think that's and this is why I quite like the idea of something like the Reclaimer, because I feel like with the Reclaimer, because you're not in combat, you can all have goes at different things. You can all be the drone. I would have no problem as the owner of a Reclaimer saying, right, you choose the contracts today, you get us there, blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to do drone stuff, or I'm just going to do the arm operation, or whatever. And you can all revolve through those roles. Like someone can fly off and go to a part of the ship and see if there's any salvage they can carry out manually. Someone else could be doing the drones. Other people can be scrapers. And I quite like that, because I think there's real longevity in players being able to choose how they want to play within a crew. So it's like, right, okay, great. Wiggy, you're captain for the day with the Reclaimer. You choose the contracts. You find out where we're going. You get us there. We're going to go and get all the supplies laid out and, all the food up to the galley and all that sort of stuff. And then the day after, it's going to be like, right, Mornstar, you're the captain for today now, and so on. I like that. I think the Reclaimers and other industry ships are going to find that easy. I think the reason that is easier, just going to do this. I think the reason that's easier is because they're industry ships and they don't have to deal with combat as much. So that. Yeah. Yeah, just going down now. I'm just going to catch up with what people said. Sorry. Warspite confirmed, said Tizere. Oh, God, I don't know if it's Warspite. Yeah, so NATO, hopefully that's an answer to your question. I don't know if you've responded to that, but we'll get to that in a second. Lillian says, Drinkers, do you think a destroyer should be able to engage without a group, referring to Sergi's concept of capital ship gameplay? I think, yeah, so I think it depends on what you're taking on, right? I like the idea of the Polaris, I like the idea of the Javelin, because at the moment they appear to be standalone ships, in that, they might not have the range and the survivability, they're going to have to go back for repairs if they get damaged and all that sort of stuff, compared to a fleet that will be there to protect them and keep them stocked. But I don't think there's any reason, depending on the target. I think that I know the comment you're talking to, and I think in the context what they were talking about was capital ships engaging each other. The idea was there would be an attendant fleet with both of them. I think if you're just going up against stuff, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Because you want to see those ships in combat more than just, in the rare occasion where you manage to get an entire fleet together for a battle to face someone else's fleet. Because I'm not funny, if you're going to rock up with a fleet with a bunch of capital ships in it, and I'm sat there in my Perseus, I'm out of there. I'm not even getting involved in that. I'm just going to get the hell out. Because I'm going to see your Javelin miles before you see me. So, assuming you don't have scouts out, I'm going to run away. Sod that. Good evening, Shadow Girl. Good to see you. So yeah, I'm assuming Cruisers and Light will be all crafted ships and not owned by a single player as such. Yeah, possibly. It might be that they decide to go that way, maybe selling extremely limited numbers as a way for them to keep making money without having to charge subscriptions or any of that nonsense. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know on that front. So yeah, so there isn't anything stopping them saying, you'll find a Bengal, tow it back, and fix it at the player stations. No, you're entirely right. There's not. I just think that they might be potentially opening the way. And if it doesn't work, they can go, well, we never said it. But if it does work, they go, hey, we've been looking into this for a while, and we think it's going to work, and now this is how it's gonna play out. Excuse me. 2 moments. So yeah, this is why I like the idea of freaking NPC crew. Yeah, absolutely. Stunner with the key question. How far out does everyone think that 1.0 is if CIG can make their goals? Oh, God. The thing is here, Stunner, is I know my answer is going to upset a couple of people. I think we are a long way out. I wouldn't mind betting that we don't see 1.0 until 2030. And before this explodes, before chat explodes into, oh my God, you idiot. Bear with me. I've just seen 3 viewers log off. 3 people have gone, nope, don't want to hear that crap. That's brilliant. So here's why. Have a look at how many gameplay loops they are. So at the end of the Stars My Destination presentation from CitizenCon, forward it through until about 2/3 of the way through, and you see that board with the guilds, and around it it's got like the different professions and all the little bits that go into those. So like the exploration was broken up into cartography and all that sort of stuff, and so on and so on and so on. Look at those gameplay loops and then imagine how many they've got to. So add them all up, take away the ones that we've already got, or at least partially got, even if we're just talking partially. Add in, divide that by 6 years, which is what we've got, right? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or 30, right? Divide that number by 6. I think you're still going to see a lot per year. And then we're going to look back and go, wait, the most gameplay loops they've ever released in a year is like 2 or 3. Oh yeah, I see what you mean. So I think that's it. I think we all agree on 2030, says Blamsmith. Yeah, that's the scary thing, right? Yeah, Squadron 42 episode 2 before 1.0. Jadomo, you negative. I really hope not that. But yeah, it's going to be a long way off. And the other thing to remember is that 1.0 is a shift in philosophy and what they consider to be release, but it's more about how they go about giving us more content, right? So what they've said with 1.0 is 1.0 is a shift in benchmark. They won't do tier 0 stuff anymore. They're expecting things to integrate far more smoothly, less bugs, more performance, things being better optimized. They're still going to continue releasing stuff, as we pointed out. I've just seen someone there point out. Sorry, Lillian's just pointed out. Endeavor post 1.0. Yeah, shame about the Endeavor, Lillian, and the hope and stuff. But it will get there eventually. Have faith. We will get there. So we need a $1 billion alpha article from Kotaku before we go live. Then we can release this socially. I don't think you're wrong. It's really interesting, actually. I've seen a bunch of stuff already online about various things. So I've seen one article, $750 million, and they're targeting an early 2026 release for Star Citizen. Just idiots. That's a YouTube channel / Facebook gaming channel / something else. But yeah, just I won't link it because people will go flame it and they deserve it. But I've started to call them out, and funny enough, they're ignoring me. So I'll make a video about them instead. Fuckers. But yeah. Question, says Ray Louderbeck. Any idea about the letters of marque to allow players to operate the big ships on a regular basis? No clue, mate. You know, I would say I try to keep it to what they've said, but I don't. I'm off on my speculation all the time. But yeah, no clue. I haven't heard enough to even make a guess. Anything I'd say would be wildly my own thoughts. And as we've seen time and time again, I often am not on the mark with what CIG are doing. You know, I said about there potentially being cast members and a release date for Squadron 42 at SitCon. And all right, we got a release window of a year, 2 years from now, but it wasn't that. So I don't want to go down that route and kind of, you know, either put my foot in my mouth massively or say something that someone takes out of context. 1.0 is 2 years out, so Shinobi, they'll want SC to be close as finished as possible to Squadron 42 is released. Certainly, and I think that is likely. A lot of people have kind of quoted Grand Theft Auto 6 as part of the reason they might not be releasing next year, which I think is a bit of a misnomer, because PlayStation or whichever one it is it PlayStation or Xbox? I can't remember. But whichever one it is, it's on console, right? It might be both. It's on console, it's not on PC, so I don't think it's a direct competitor just yet. I think it's more that. I think you are bang on the money there, Shinobi, is that they need to get Star Citizen in a much better state. So all the players that come over to Squadron 42, and if it's anything like that demo, there will be a lot. It'll be a serious game when it releases. You know, contender for Game of the Year, all that clean sweep, all that sort of stuff. People are then going to come to the PU and go, "What is this nonsense?" and never come back. So they need to do something. Whether that's a 1.0 release, not sure. But yes, they certainly need to improve the PU experience. And I think they're beginning to realise that. I would imagine there's a fair level of panic. When they said that a lot of people were going to come over to PU, yeah, they're going to have to, right? Because they really need to fix it. Or at least make it an experience more comparable with Squadron. If 1.0 locks us into the fleets with no more melt or CCU, I hope it's a while, says 2.0. Yeah, I genuinely think they are going to continue to sell ships. Whether that means we lose the CCUs, whether that means we lose the melts, whether that means we lose the store credit. But I think they're aware of how poorly gamers react to changes and all that sort of stuff. I don't think they're necessarily going to lock themselves into something that could lose them a lot of money. None of us want to see them go down the subscription route, despite the huge cost in servers that server meshing will bring with it, because not only do they need to pay for servers as they use them, they also need to pay to have servers sitting there at the company that's providing them, Amazon in this case, doing nothing to be spun up in case. So they're not just paying for the one they're using, they're paying for a stack of them sitting there ready when it's needed. So yeah, that's going to be a challenge. No one wants them to see them go the subscription route if they want to continue selling ships and then say, look, everyone gets the ships, but the release to the people that bought them is 6 months ahead of the release in-game for UEC. It wouldn't have too much of a problem with that. I know elements of the community will, but that's that. Statistically obtuse. What a wonderful name. Love it. Good evening. Welcome in. CIG need to release 1.0 after Squadron 42 to capitalise on that release. 100%. So yeah, Genesis Starliners 1.0. Yeah, I caught that teaser. That was in one of the IAE shows, wasn't it? So yeah. Am I concerned at all about how much they might move forward post 1.0, like if they close their doors and such, says Scott? No, I don't. I genuinely think this is the game that's... Right, tinfoil hat time. Because I've not got any tinfoil on my desk. Why would I have tinfoil on my desk? But I've not got any tinfoil. We haven't seen games developed like this. Right? There was a great short on YouTube, which was when the hangars first came out and when you went to a table, a hollow table, to load up an image of your ship to change the loadouts and the components and the weapon systems and all that sort of stuff. How much it has changed is staggering. Most games, they build established systems. It's all cheaty, jiggery, pokery around the back, right? How many times have you seen, you've got a mission and you're like, well, hang on, I've just destroyed all of the connections for that thing, so it shouldn't work. But because they're only there as explosive toys, the system doesn't actually work. I've still got to go and press the button to switch it off, despite the fact all the generators are dead, there's no fuel, right? That's not how they're building this. The resource network system that they've already said is going to go into bases and into underground facilities and into the distribution centers means that you know that somewhere in that facility there's a power plant, there's radars, there's shields, there's all that sort of stuff, and you can go and find it, hack it, or destroy it. So there's going to be that ability, not the, oh, well, I played this one mission in Grand Theft Auto, we did a heist and I got disguised, but I can't do that in other missions, and that's really annoying, because it'd be really cool if I could do it in this one. Not so much for the generated gameplay, the modular gameplay that they're building. The curated stuff might be a little different, but that's the whole point of these resource networks. That's what they're there for, that's what they're designed to do, that's how they work. People don't build games like that. So I think when this comes out in this release, I think a lot of people, even the people that like to hate on it, and the people that have told us that it's vaporware, and the people that have told us that it's a scam, and the people that are telling us that it's a cult, we're a cult, and all this sort of stuff, they are going to see the light, or they're going to miss out on an incredible gaming experience. If and when this comes to release, and gets to the point that, of delivering most of what they promised, maybe not the 100-star systems, but everything else, I think at that point, this is going to be an incredible gaming experience for most people. Whatever it is you want to do. The fact that you can come in and, if you want to explore, that's a gameplay loop completely by itself. That is a game by itself. PvP, fine. PvE, combat, fine. Come in and be a miner, refiner, fine. Industry mogul, do it. Whatever it is that you want to do, I want to come in and be the game's best competition marksman. They've added that. That is mental. All of these things that they're adding, that they're building systemically, which is why this is taking so long. People keep comparing it to other stuff, but nothing is being built like this in this manner. It's going to be an incredible gaming experience. That's why I'm here. That's why you guys are here. That's why this thing has crowdfunded $750 million. Aside from cryptocurrency, which is a whole different thing, this is the most crowdfunded project on Earth. Nothing else has been crowdfunded to this extent, except maybe governments, and even then, that's not consensual. They're taking your money whether you like it or not, right? This is the most crowdfunded project on Earth. Google it. I'm right. So yeah, long story short, my worry is that there's something happens that causes a massive crisis of faith, and they don't get to finish the game. That would be my worry, Scott. How they move forward, if this attracts the numbers of players that it has, if this attracts even a fraction of the money from new players that we've paid into the game, this game's going to last for a long, long time. Anyway, sorry. Really, really long answer to that, but no, I think they're just going to keep developing it. So like they've said at CitizenCon, they're not making a Star Citizen Part 2. They're not making Star Citizen 2. This is it. This is the game. And what I think they might do is they might continue with other stories. So Squadron 42 Episode 2 and 3, we might get something about around the Messer era, we might do something about the Tavaran Wars. They've got this whole universe they're going to build out. We might get single players that takes attention away for a little bit, and then that money will be put back into the game. So yeah. I don't disagree with your argument. To me, it seems much more motivational than to change the financial model and share less publicly. Yeah, so I think they're taking a beating in the public arena from everyone, and I think this is why it's very easy in our culture right now to tear something down. It's easy to say something's crap and it needs to be rebuilt. The minute you start talking about how you rebuild it, everyone disagrees with you. So, yeah, I think it's very easy to knock stuff down, and I don't think it's... There are white knights, 100%. But I think it's just... I don't think there's anything wrong with being hopeful and having faith in someone's vision for how they want to do something. Especially, I mean, you got to look at yourself, right? If you put the amount of money that some people put into this game and you're not sure you can get there, you got to wonder what you're doing. So, you know, I think we are, and I think we're all kind of... we're on board with that. Avi says, I kind of doubt they'll obscure the dev process, but I do think they'll change it so live is more game. PTU is PTU is the testing, and it doesn't go live till it's actually completely solid. 100% Avi. That is what I'm hoping 1.0 said, and they seem to certainly indicate that, although not with that level of detail. Thoughts, Nautilus or Perseus or Idris for escort with a Javelin? Good question. Idris, I think. If you're struggling for players, Perseus. I don't see the Nautilus for that. I think the Nautilus is going to work very well with systems, but I don't think it's going to work with the Javelin. Not in a conventional sense. So yeah. We have people, says Lillian, but most people have starter ships, 100 player org. That's awesome, and that's quite nice because you don't have this. Oh my god, we have 100 people and 27 javelins. That's a nice place to be because I know some orgs are staring down the barrel of that. So yeah, cloud servers are scalable. Usually pay for within a minute of the use these days. Are they, Wiggy? Interesting. That's good news. Although I would imagine there will at least be some sort of contract with Amazon that they have to provide. They are service bound to provide servers if CIG needs them, because the effect of them not being able to, going, oh, sorry, we've got server unavailability at the minute, and the game starts to struggle, I think that will be a problem. So there will be some service level agreement between the two, but that's good. I mean, that's going to reduce the costs overall. Prepare your wallets for outlandish clothing, paints, and armors, says Socially. Yeah, 100%. You know, reaching a stage and being able to get a logo put into the game would be quite cool as an org. Not so much as what you spend, but what you do in the game and how you develop. That would be kind of cool. Swarms of NPCs engaging in hand-to-hand combat using katanas with my PC. It's socially confused. Interesting. Want NPCs to have ammo limits like we have, and they certainly seem to go that because they were talking about ammo crates a couple of sitcoms ago and the rearm animation. So that certainly seems to be part of it. Yeah. So, MK Porter, sorry, I don't know if it's Mark Porter or MK Porter. Good evening. About to melt my tack for a Perseus and need emotional support. Well, the Perseus is a beautiful ship, mate. Look, you got to do what you do, right? And that sort of stuff. Don't back yourself into a corner. But I get it. It's a huge amount of money for a video game. I'm with you there, buddy. But, you know, my Bojangles are quivering. Fantastic. My Bojangles are all a quiver. Mate, yeah, absolutely. I just waiting for the update. Do we get there? Do we get there? Porter, you can't leave us like this. Oh, kind of ironic, the loaner ship for the Perseus, the Polaris being the ship I want to mainly destroy with the Perseus. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, let us know how you get on, mate. Technically, politics is crowdfunded and the financial gamblers get insane. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, you're right. With donations and stuff, you are absolutely right. So subscriptions much more stable and predictable than sales, right? Well, I think so, but also if you look at, I think like the subscription model that they have at the moment, the idea that goes to how they present stuff to us, the idea that there's a ship of the month, I think that's a really nice kind of way of doing it, even if it locks to stock like it does now. That would be a really nice way of doing it because it's optional. And when you look at what they're bringing in through subs, it's millions a year. So they certainly could go that way. There's a lot of options for them that doesn't involve screwing people over with subscription. But yeah, I think a lot of people think subscriptions and monthly is a solution, but looking at streaming video and other games, they need to have enough content to make people keep their subscription. 100%. And I think that the thing is that we default to subscription because that's the model that's been used. They're developing the game in a completely different way. There's no reason they can't find another way to fund it. Like if they give us very basic ways of colouring our ships, like we saw at CitizenCon, you can create colours and do the whole, I forget what they call it, is it the hex codes, the codes where you can colour your ships, fine. But then if you want more advanced paint schemes with digital camo and stuff like that, then they're things you'll pay for, and you pay whatever it is, $5-10 for a skin. I don't have a problem with that because it's not, there's no advantage to it. You know, because I'm not identifying you visually, I'm finding you on a targeting system. Your paint is just about how cool you want to look. Same armor. You know, charge for really cool armor skins. As long as the armor does the same as the armor without the skin on, all good. Like, all that sort of stuff. I think there's a lot of ways they can go. Jotcup says, I have a feeling the Nautilus is going to go the way of the Genesis and be a post 1.0 ship. Yeah, it depends how... Because we were having this conversation about drones and stuff today, how we think drones are going to be not as simple to implement as we think. It's not just going to be, it's either a drone or it isn't. There's going to be different types. We know the mines can move slightly, because they said that, towards a target, so they can actually track the target. You've got mines that are actually just weapon drones, so they sit in place. But if you go through them, they all engage you and that sort of stuff. So there's different types of mines. Yeah, I think it will probably be closely linked to drones, which is why I brought that up. But we'll see. Nautilus is a mining operation escort. The Nautilus now has a huge purpose that they're talking about stations. Now I get why they were talking about mines. And that sort of stuff. I'm on board with it now. There's a guy named Grolo, says Scott, who's a system architect, and he's done some amazingly detailed breakdowns of server tech and costs for SC. Highly recommend checking him out. Thanks, Scott. I'll have a look. That's a top tip. Gib Perseus, a 2-3 moped, and I will be ecstatic. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can see why they wouldn't. I know why people want it. I can see why they wouldn't. A lot of the frigates and destroyers in the Royal Navy do not have dedicated medical facilities. There's a sick bay, but you know, the best you'll have is like a GP-esque doctor on board, and then a bunch of people trained in combat surgery, not the you need your gallbladder out. Well, we'll do that. You know, you've got kidney stones. Well, we can deal with that. You would be flown off for that sort of stuff. So I see from that point of view. I also see from a gameplay point of view how it hampers the patches. So I get both. SC is basically drops in the ocean for Amazon Web Services, 100%. I reckon Percy owners might have our hands full with Vandal if CRGs do things right. 100%. Watching the Vandal in that Squadron 42 video was just, ugh. Do you know what? One day, we'll do it on not one of these, but I'll put it out. We'll just do a Squadron 42 watch video. We'll do a watch party. We'll put the video up. We'll watch it together. We'll get drunk. It'll be fun. And we'll just talk about little bits as we go through and not pause it. But if people want to do that, just, you know, give me a thumbs up or whatever. But that would be quite good fun, and talk about the little gameplay details. But yeah. Lillian says, at its core, CRG is making the tech for Ready Player One gaming, and Amazon wants to be there for the whole ride. Do you know what? I keep seeing the seats with all the stuff in it, and then I can't remember. Del, if you're still there, can you on Discord very quickly link the seats that they had at CitizenCon? The ones that actually have haptics in the back. So if you take hits, it actually hits you in the back, and you get that kind of force feedback stuff. They showed off there. It looked incredible. You've got all that, and then you've got VR, and then you've got the ability to build sim pits with MFDs and stuff that you can set up. Like, you're not wrong. We're not far off it. Maybe not quite to the whole walking round point, but you know, this is one of the beautiful things of living on my own, is that no one's around to tell me that I can't do these things. And then one of the downsides of living on my own is that no one's around to tell me that I can't do these things. But I keep thinking about building a full sim build, and at 4-star Citizen, and even to the point of trying to make the inside of it look a little bit like a ship. Whether I might go for a Hornet or something like that, even though I don't own one, to be cool like that. But yeah, I don't know. That's the problem with it, is you start to get to put your headset on, do all that sort of stuff. Yeah, It'll be very cool. Shadow Girl says they should fund the game by making deals with major companies so we can find them in game. Imagine KFC or McDonald's. Oh, bugs. Because I got the window open. Sorry. Just had Daddy Longlegs trying to fly in my mouth. Yeah. Imagine KFC or McDonald's in game. Yeah. Deliveroo. Just Eat. I forget what the American ones are. I think some of that is the same for you guys, right? But yeah, just having just being able to order food from your Moby Glass to your house. Beautiful. I'd be that. I'd never leave my chair, basically. Yeah. Dollars per hour per year per player for server costs adds up quick. So Scott, it does. You're right. Yeah. Did phase 4 twice and then got the Perseus. Now I'm going to sit and watch the stream to stick with sorry, pause it. I can't make that out. That's why I've kind of paused and then done the 404 badges not found. Did phase 4 twice, got the Percy. Now I'm going to sit and watch the stream. Feel too sick with myself to play right now. Sorry, I'm with you. Yeah, dude, don't feel sick. It's all good, man. It's all good. And hopefully you can undo it if you need to. So, you know, you'll be all right, mate. It'll be okay. I reckon CIG would do well, says Wiggy, by tying subscriptions into base building, habs, and hangar fee relief. Make it super tempting for power players. Yeah, I don't want things to be super tempting for power players. I want power players to go and take a long walk off a short pier. But no, yeah, I think the key thing for me is when you put money into a game is there shouldn't be a tactical advantage, and it shouldn't remove a bunch of costs for you, because the whole point of costs in the game is to control the economy. And with an economy like this one, you're gonna have to kind of be careful with it. But yeah, the sick baby get told to take some brufen and drink some water. 100%. Kidney stones gameplay 1 when no, absolutely not. Nurse can fit in the cargo by the Perseus. It can. You're right. 100%. So yeah, my wife is watching Family Guy, laughing it up, and has no idea what I just did. If she asks, I'm going to say it was an update. Oh God, yeah. I hope you enjoyed camping on the sofa, mate. Don't have 10k laying around for this immersive chair stuff with all bells and whistles. Yeah. So those chairs were like 800, I think. And obviously it doesn't have any of the mounts and stuff, so you're gonna have to add that stuff. But I'd be very interested in putting that stuff together. It would be a very slow time project. But yes, I would love you. You got to try joysticks before you commit to making a simpit, says Shadow Girl. Never a truer word was spoken. I absolutely would have to. You're right. The Percy is a great buy. It's up next for development. Going to be a ton of fun in an organised fleet battle. 100%. And when it does, Porter, make sure you check back here. When the Perseus comes out, we are going to have a Perseus release event thing where as many of us as we can will get together in Perseuses. We will go and make an absolute mess of the server. Go and fly as many as we can. If you don't have one, it's great. Come and crew one of ours. Yeah. It's gonna be really good fun. We are literally gonna crash the server with a ridiculous number of Persei, if that's how you say it. But yeah, should be good fun. I want a World War II dazzle paint for my Percy. I keep hoping, says Wiggy. No dazzle paint. No, they're bad. What sofa? He sold it for the Percy. Yeah, absolutely. Couch is the best seat. You're not wrong. I've got an L-shaped sofa, so I agree 100%. So it's great because then you get to sit with your feet out right in front of you, and you got the full back support and stuff. I just need one of those. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's my mini sim pit. Is one of those couch things that goes over you when you sit there and play. Maybe that's it. I think you've just solved it for me. John Bernard, good evening. Welcome in. What can you tell me about the Galaxy? I bought one, and I don't know if it's truly worth it. So Galaxy is going to be modular. So we know that there's going to be a couple of modules for it. It's obviously got the medbed, the cargo, the refinery. We know it's also going to get base building at some point, although what that's going to look like, we're not sure. It was confirmed at last, so not CitizenCon this year, the last year that it was on the slide, that it's going to be a large base builder. So it's going to be like the build. I think the strength of the Galaxy is it looks great. It's got the modularity, so it will literally swap the modules out. So it's like the central section just kind of drops out and they put a new one in. So even if you don't buy all the modules now, you can buy them in-game, and you can just swap them out and that sort of stuff. I also like, for a lot of them, that there's that little hangar space at the back, separate to the module area. I think that's really cool. So whatever your gameplay loop, I think there's something in it for you. And the great thing is that if you want to move between cargo, medical, refining, base building, you're doing it in one ship. And that's a very powerful thing. So yeah, hopefully that's helped. I want a paint that looks like a giant target for my Perseus, 100%. Still waiting for a Polaris-sized brawler, says Edison. Don't get wrong, love the Polaris, but I would rather have a brawler that size, soften up the target so the Polaris can come in and finish the job after I've blown off the PDCs. Yeah, I think that's, for me, that's going to be the Perseus. And I know you just want a bigger one, bigger guns, but yeah. Your Perseus will need a Polaris. Chaperone? Absolutely not. No chaperoning my Perseus. Is going to get into whatever trouble it feels like, and it will deal with the consequences as and when. So, yes, thank you for reminding me, Jock Cop. There is an org for Drinkers with Game Problems. If you look for DWGP, we are all listed. Just make sure, please, that you are in the Discord and that you include, there's a little note when you apply, put in your Discord username, so that I know who you are. If that's not in there, I'm going to reject it, I'm afraid, just so that we know where everyone is. You don't need to be in that to do the Friday Night Ops. I've not had one for ages, the whole reason being, with a game that is struggling for gameplay like this right now, to have an org and for it to be active and meaningful, you have to organise events all the time, and I just don't have the time to do that. Now that we know you can be part of multiple orgs and you can be repped and all that sort, you can rep them when you want, I have no problem with having one. So please, 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 if you want to join, if you're just like, sometimes I just want a game, hang out, chat with people. You don't even have to join in with the activities, right? You just come into the Discord, come and chat with us. That's the whole point of DGP. That's why I started this thing in the first place. So yeah. Socially Confused says, many thanks for your opinion, said John. John, you are very welcome, sir. I hope it's helped. I think the Galaxies with construction module is more useful than getting only the build. I don't want to be stuck with a large ship that only builds and nothing else, says Socially. Yeah, I can see that. So yeah, I got one of those freestanding stick wheel pedal stands for couch mode. Works great, says Scott. Nice. Absolutely. Shadow Girl, the song intended me getting the Perseus to put holes in anything Polaris size. Okay, as long as you aim towards the enemy, says Shadow Girl. Yep, 100%. Absolutely. Nice. But yeah, so it's looking like we've got 4.0 coming soon, we hope. And when that happens, what I'm looking to do is I'm going to get a bunch of people who are in the Discord together. We're going to go and load up a ship with as much supplies and, snubcraft and all that sort of stuff as we can. We're going to go into Pyro and see how long we last and take that whole experience, because I have not yet set foot into Pyro once. I wanted to do it in its best possible state, which I'm hoping will be when it gets released to the PU. And it's going to be really good fun. I think it's going to feel like that first experience of stepping into a new star system Uncharted. And I'm sure lots of people who have been there will be on the ship as well, but no spoilers, otherwise I'll throw you out an airlock. But yeah, that's going to be not a bad way of marking the start of that, I think. So, I think we've come to the end of it now. It's been a pleasure talking with you all. It's felt like a really good stream, so thank you very much for being here. You've been watching Drinkers with Gaming Problems. Thank you very much for stopping by. I'll see you soon.